So we're recording. Don't be shy. Don't let that stifle the questions. My name is Todd Morrish. I'm on the events committee for PD Active, and I welcome you all. I know we've got some folks from PD Active here, and maybe some folks from Merrill Garden, so let's do a quick show of hands for that real quick. Who here is already a member of PD Active by virtue of the fact that you've been to one of these events before, or maybe we've got your email and your inbox is getting crunched? Mostly PD Active folks. And how about Merrill Garden? Good, welcome. All right, 5 or 6 of you, great, welcome, nice to have you. And some of you are a little bit of both, right, Alana? Alana's a resident here and a PD Active member. Great, so before I introduce our speakers and kick this off, I just want to shout out a big thank you to the folks here at Merrill Gardens. Laura Bell, you might see later on, Raul, Jocelyn at the front desk. They have provided us with this room free of charge. On top of that, they've given us all these treats in the back room. So if you haven't availed yourself of all those snacks and breakfast treats, please do so anytime during the presentation and the discussion, right now, afterwards, whatever you want. The format today is that we will do probably 40 or so minutes of chat with our panelists, and then we'll probably segue, take a short break. Y'all can mingle if you want. The PD Active folks are free to leave, and then we will probably go into a slightly deeper dive on PD Active itself. So not the World Parkinson's Congress, but we promised the Merrill Garden folks that we'd give them an introduction about what PD Active is all about, our programs and our events, etc. So we'll do a little transition sort of around the 11:45 timeline or 11:30. So, are there any questions before we get started? No? Okay, let me introduce our panelists. First, Deborah Harris. Deborah was at the World Parkinson's Congress, of course, as was Adam Mizok. Deborah's been a long time, they've both been longtime members of PD Active. Adam was even on the board for a long time, helping us with the programs committee. So, with that said, let's dive in. Why don't I ask you, Adam, for starters, if you would do us a favor and sort of set the stage for what the world, this is, by the way, this is all regarding the Congress that happened in Barcelona in July, right? We're all clear on that? Okay, good. So I thought it would be helpful for Adam at least to start by setting the stage for us. What was the setting like? What was the facility like? Was it one big conference room and the speakers rotated in and out? Just to give us an idea for how to set our expectations and create an image in our minds for what this was like.
So, hi everyone, thanks for coming. So if you can imagine, every 3 years there's a World Parkinson Congress. There was one in Portland, Oregon, I believe 6 or 7 years ago, and then one in Kyoto, Japan, and then just this past summer, delayed 1 year because of COVID, there was a conference in Barcelona. And so once every 3 years is kind of pretty rare. And compare that with, I know a lot of folks in the room went to the UCSF symposium a couple weeks ago where there were, not loud enough?
No.
I don't want to scream.
No, you're going to have to speak as loud as you can, probably.
The UCSF symposium a few weeks ago, there were probably 500 people, maybe 300, something, it's a pretty large group. At the World Parkinson Congress, there were over 3,000 people from all over the world, really all over the world. African countries, through Asia, of course from North America, and there were physicians who had PD, there were people who just had PD. They were a very interesting group of people, partners of people with PD, and we got a booklet of all the kind of just the agenda, and it was, I don't know, 100 pages. There were more things you could go to. If you had a football team, you probably would still miss a few things if you assigned one person to each class. So it was at the Barcelona Convention Center, a very large space. There were so multiple rooms at any given time, plus the main hall, where they could probably fit 3,000 people. And it's kind of staggering to be in a room like that with all these people who are focused on the same thing and dealing with the same issues. And it was sort of awe-inspiring the moment when there was an opening night. So it was a 4-day conference, but there was an opening night ceremony, and there were hundreds of volunteers that had come out to help organize all this, and they cheered as the attendees, the conference attendees, went into the main room, and it was pretty staggering. You want to add anything to?
So the intro was all the presenters all up on stage welcoming the attendees?
The local volunteers. So these are people from Barcelona. They could be movement disorder specialists, or they could be just people in the community who wanted to volunteer. And it was emotional, because it was really like something was happening. And there was a global video film competition, and they had announced the winners that night, and we watched them on this huge screen. And one was one of the people who put it together was Heather Kennedy, who Todd interviewed maybe a year or two ago.
Twitchy woman.
Oh, no, that's Sharon.
Oh, that's Sharon.
Yeah, Heather was, I forget what her website, but so she did a music video with another person with PD, and if you Google Slim Shaky, you will see it. It's great. It's 3 minutes, and it's sort of the same music as Slim Shady, which is Eminem, but Slim Shaky, Heather Kennedy, and another person. So a lot of you know about Twitchy Women. They had a huge contingent from the West Coast. There were 87?
Wow.
Some really large amount of people. And they were up in the front rows of this huge conference room. Some people rode from the UK down to the port, and then they took a train or a bus on their bike, and when they got to France, they rode to Spain, to Barcelona for the conference. So there was this whole energy that we just don't get in our daily life, and that's partly why they don't do it annually, because it's just a whole lot of sort of one-time energy. The people who spoke, whether they were people with PD or physicians or physical therapists, they were at the top of their game. And so these were the most interesting talks with people doing the most interesting research. There was a room, it was called the poster room, and people would present kind of their case or their special thing on a poster. And there were probably, 500 posters, and people would stand in front of their poster and explain, this is my story, or this is the research I'm doing. And it was fascinating, and a lot of that research from Kyoto and Portland, those people have kind of moved forward, and we're seeing things like nutrition is medicine and exercise is medicine, and those were poster topics 4 years ago. What I thought was also a nice bonus was that you could try new classes that you've never tried before. And so a lot of people, I think even in this room, do dance for PD or some kind of dancing for people with Parkinson's. And they had the guy from Kent, the Dance for PD guy and Mark Morris.
David Leventhal.
David Leventhal. He was there, and he brought teachers from all over the world. So it wasn't just like people from Manhattan, and that was really.
And you put on sample classes?
Yeah, you could. That would be like your lunch break.
Oh, really?
And then there was Zumba with sort of a Barcelona focus, but it was really more of a Spanish focus. So there was a flamenco Zumba song, and it was just really fun and new. You know, all this stuff was just, you could just walk down the hall and check it out. That said, you know, I was hoping that there would be some kind of silver bullet for Parkinson's.
Who else was hoping that?
And I think there are some things I'm pretty excited about, and I'll talk about them later today. But you know, the truth is there wasn't a silver bullet. There wasn't even really like a promise of a silver bullet. It's more of a shotgun approach, and people are trying all sorts of things to see what's going to stick. And you know, as I mentioned, diet, nutrition thought conceived broadly, so sleep, exercise, being outside and you know fresh air. So nutrition broadly is clearly very helpful. Social isolation was like kind of a you know, something that people we all need to watch out for. Don't retrench, but you know, speak out, kind of like a power moves class approach to your life. So what, do you want to pop in or?
Well, yeah, let's take a break. That gives us a good sort of idea and impression of what the setting was like there, which is helpful for me. I was not there, and I wondered what it felt like to be there, what it looked like to be there. Can't wait to get into more of the specifics around some of the content of the sessions. I know, Deborah, you had a short prepared statement that you wanted to read to sort of set the stage for your
Adam covered a lot of it. The hall, the convention hall that we were in had 3 floors. I mean, this was huge. There was so much going on. As Adam said, there were 3,000 people from 73 countries. 900 of them were medical doctors, and the next largest group of people was people with Parkinson. People with Parkinson's. Then there were nurses, physical therapists, you know, clinicians, and also partners. And there was a program for them. And as Adam said, there were these 60 people that cycled there. They combined for 3,000 kilometers of riding. And there was one guy, a 65-year-old, who ran from London.
Wow.
So it was pretty exciting, you know. And the Congress was very well organized. And for weeks before, we got information from them, preparing us. And they sent tips on traveling and help with hotel reservations, and they were incredibly helpful. And they also worked with the city of Barcelona so that all the services, all the public services were aware that there would be this influx of people with Parkinson's and what we might present like and what needs we might have. So I was impressed by that. I also, you know, was hoping, I guess, for a magic bullet, but really what I was looking for was to find ways that I could live better now with Parkinson's. Somebody told me about this, the conference, very shortly after I was diagnosed. And she was the same person that sort of talked me down off the cliff and told me that there was life after Parkinson's. And she said that the conference in Kyoto was really pivotal for her. So that made a big impression on me, you know, because I wanted to have that experience. And I'd never been to any sort of a conference, honestly, in my life. I'm an artist, and we don't do conferences as far as I know. But my partner goes to a lot of conferences, and he really encouraged me, and I appreciate him for that. And he went to a lot of the programs for care partners, and that really energized him. He came back and joined a support group, and so as Adam said, there were just dozens of sessions going on at any time. These cutting edge things that, you know, were very hard to understand, but you could buttonhole the doctors at any time during the conference and talk to them about your own interests and issues. And then there were these, like nurses, like I said, all these different things, and they sort of like divided them up into programs. So, you could tell which ones were gonna be very technical and which ones were gonna be more, like exercise classes or something in between. But there was kind of really a lot of cross-fertilization. I think that was really unusual. So there was the day zero, they called it. There was, it was simpler, and a lot of people gave sort of overviews. And there was a woman there that some of you may have heard of. Her name is Linda Olson. She's a writer. I heard her talk before. She has PD, and she also lost both of her legs and one of her arms in a terrible car accident when she was young. And she is an amazing person. I mean, she's so much more than an inspirational speaker. She's a truly, joyful person, and she's lived an incredibly full life. And, of course, her message is, if I can do it, you can do it. And it's true. It's very inspiring. And there were just so many inspiring stories, and that's kind of what I took away from it. People's stories. Then that night there was the opening ceremony that Adam talked about, and just being in the room with that many people with Parkinson's was just very impressive and moving. What I was going to say? Yeah, if you have Parkinson's and you've ever been in a situation where you feel self-conscious about your symptoms or misunderstood or stigmatized, this was the opposite. You were in Parkinson's country, and it was just an amazing experience. It was normal to have Parkinson's at this place.
That alone makes it sound like it's worth the trip, right?
Absolutely, it really is transformational. And then there were just all these films, like that one Adam talked about, the rap. That was a guy who was just out of film school who made it about his mother, and they were there, and all the people that made these films were there and wanted to talk about it. So you really got to know people. At the end of the thing, there was for some reason, there was an address by Paul McCartney. It was a big surprise, I guess, and he was the reason that he was speaking was because somebody had put to new lyrics about PD, Rocky Raccoon. And Raccoon was actually, for some reason, I don't know why, the mascot of this whole thing.
Was this presentation video or live?
It was video. This guy, very talented guy, and we managed to fit Alpha Cyanurian into the lyrics of Rocky Raccoon. It was really great. And then that experience that we had of the volunteers applauding us also moved me quite a lot. I felt very proud to be with these people. They were so creative and so brilliant and so courageous, really. So then, like Adam said, there was just tons of stuff going on. And there also was this room like with sort of vendors, that people that had all this new stuff that you could try, like virtual reality and red light therapy or whatever it is, and just more than you could get involved in. Our friend Joanne, some of you know her. She was there too. She couldn't come today.
Joanne Ruby. She got very involved with these people that were working with women's issues of PD, including people with young onset. So young women who were trying to get pregnant or were pregnant, or women that were experiencing menopause. What are the effects that Parkinson's has on us? Not very, people are just starting to do research on that, and that's really exciting. All the classes, like the David Leventhal class was great. Here's one more film. This one's called Shaking Hands with the Devil, and you can find this online through the Parkinson, the World Conference.
it's this guy's name, David Plummer. He's a wildlife photographer that has PD. And this film was about the people in Kenya who have PD. Not only is there no treatment, no medicine for them there, they're rarely even diagnosed. There aren't doctors available. And the people in their community think that the PD is a result of possession by the devil. So these people are so marginalized and so persecuted and even killed because people are so afraid of them. So that is the kind of thing that, you know, you become aware of. I mean, just the range of things. And that made me think about advocacy, you know, and looking beyond my own experience here. And finally, I'll just tell one more little story. I was standing in a lunch line one day and I got to talking to a woman who I think was about my age from Wales. And she was diagnosed 23 years ago. That's what I was hoping to find there. And she had come to Barcelona by herself, and she was just amazingly peaceful, tranquil person, but also really alive and alert. And I said to her, "How did she do that?" I said that I was having trouble, you know, gaining equanimity, and she said, "It takes time. It takes time to accept PD." And it just, I heard that, you know, and I think that's what I got from this conference. No magic bullets, but I feel like I got acceptance. So I encourage you all to try it next time.
And then the next one is going to be in North America, somewhere much closer.
That's what they say.
3 years from this past summer.
I think so. I think that's right. Well, you know, just in the category of tips and tricks and things that we'll probably see on the horizon, there were a lot of gadgets that, as Deborah mentioned, in this vendor hall, and this was there was virtual reality, there were gloves that you wore in your hand when you were eating to stop your tremor while you were eating. And there were a lot of these things, like things that you wear on your chest, and it would just sort of like make a buzzing noise, and it was sending some sort of, none of this is under the skin, this is just a wearable. And so they were trying all these new wearables, and it wasn't clear to me that any of them were gonna work or available in the US. Not yet, but there was some excitement around that. There was excitement around, you know, Apple Watches and apps for tracking tremor, and but there were also clear like holes in the analysis. Like it just, you know, like, well, what if you don't have a tremor? Or what if you have dyskinesia but not a tremor? Or what if you don't have either of those? And what if you don't have an Apple Watch? They were They were giving out Apple Watches to people who were in their study, but of course, for most people, that won't be the case. So that was sort of the strange and new gadgetry, and then in the really big important category is new DBS, deep brain stimulation products, and there are some interesting things happening there. They're already being reported on in other ways, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but it's just, if you're thinking about DBS, you want to be aware that there is a lot on the horizon. And then, was there
What is DBS?
well, you should talk, you had it.
Many people don't know.
So DBS is deep brain stimulation, and what that is it's brain surgery where you get two electrodes, you get two holes drilled in your head, and they put these very small electrodes into the substantia nigra. The substantia nigra is the black matter in the brain, and people with Parkinson's don't have enough of the black matter, and it's deep in the brain. So when they look at autopsies of people, they can see that there's less black matter. And they don't really know why deep brain stimulation works. I mean, they kind of do, but they don't really. And whenever I've heard it explained, it's not really that clear. But it really works for a lot of people. There are probably a handful of people in this room who have had it. A lot of people in our community have had it. The Bay Area is fortunate to have some great practitioners. So what they're looking at doing is making the electrodes smaller. There's apparently, I think it's titanium, or something even like stronger than titanium. And then the other new thing that's happening with DBS is, so you've got these two electrodes that you go into the doctor's office, and someone on the staff or the doctor will work to get the right frequency going. So it's kind of like a pacemaker for the brain. And it's, it's not scientific, it's like an art. People who have experience in setting these parameters are the ones who really hold the key to making the DBS work, from what I've been told. I don't have DBS. But what they're working on, and some people in our community are participating in trials for, is DBS that's adaptive. So you don't have to go into the office, you don't log in on your computer and do it via Zoom. The instrument itself adjusts based on what you're doing. If you're sleeping, it devotes the electrical currents in ways that are optimal for sleep, as opposed to if you were walking or running.
Adam?
Yeah.
I wanted to give a shout out to the support group that PD Active has for DBS. That is every Monday at 5 o'clock. Not every Monday, once a month, first Monday at 5 o'clock.
And so if you're interested if you're thinking about DBS or you've had DBS, it's a great group once a month to go to. And it's on Zoom, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then there was a deep reminder that exercise is like the only known way to slow progression of the disease. And it came up over and over and over again. And they're at the point where the research, there were so many papers on cycling and dancing and
Ping pong.
high intensity. There were ping pong tables that people were playing at. And actually a woman who won the championship recently was at the conference, like,
Exhibiting her skills.
yeah, which were pretty impressive.
And did she have PD? No.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she was a great tennis player, and then she was diagnosed with PD, like, I want to say maybe 15 years ago. The other thing that I was sort of personally excited about, because it's non-invasive or semi-non-invasive, is this new technology where it's some people have duopa, which is a pump that is attached surgically attached to your small intestine, and that's been used in Europe for a couple of years. But there are new technologies now where some of you may be familiar with an insulin patch for people with diabetes. So there's similar patches are being developed for people with Parkinson's, where the patch delivers carbidopa, levodopa to your body continuously. So you may get kind of a rash. That's one of the side effects that I've seen in people displayed at the Congress. But it seems for many people to be a real impactful change, and it's not yet approved in the US, but it's apparently very close. Do you have a question?
But that's a good point. I'm glad we take a minute to catch our breath and make sure you guys realize this is all about you guys being able to ask questions. So if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand. Got already in the back row. Go ahead.
So, what about non-motor Parkinson's?
Non-motor
Is there much
symptoms.
about that?
So I think the answer is yes, that there's been a shift, it's part of this realization about exercise and nutrition conceived broadly, so that there were studies that were being displayed on the posters around forest bathing, so going into the forest, and dancing, all sorts of movement, and we've all probably heard the statement, but you're in a room with 3,000 people, and the nutritionist gets their second, their chance to really talk to the whole group, or the physical therapist, and they said that social isolation is you retreat, and when I started to think of things as retreating in versus speaking out, thinking out, like it's hard without a microphone to talk. I don't know. I have no idea if I'm yelling or if you can barely hear me. And with Parkinson's, I think we shy away from confrontation. So again, that's the retrenching, but that's the worst thing for us to do. So trying to lean out, think, be loud, and do things that are uncomfortable. Like I know Deborah and I were talking before the start. It's a little uncomfortable to talk to a whole bunch of people in a room. But so keep in mind, nutrition. That's going to affect your mood. Being able to walk a mile or two. That's going to you'll feel successful. I know that I feel successful when I completed a task that seems hard, particularly physical. So even while it seems isn't that motor, it's really, for me at least, and I think for a lot of people, it's non-motor excitement. Like being in a room full of people dancing to a flamenco Zumba, once in a lifetime. I mean, that never happened to me before, and it was so much fun. So that's dopamine. Like one person spoke about the placebo effect, and the whole point is like it doesn't matter if it's placebo and it works, great, So let's see.
But to answer you, I mean, that's one of the hard parts about it is there were people that were experts in all of these things, all these non-motor things, but they'd always end up by saying, we don't really know. And it's sad. It can be discouraging, but there's also a lot of just really positives.
Yeah, I'm sorry, what do you mean they don't really know? They don't really know what?
What to do about it, what causes it, how to fix it.
The silver bullet, the ever elusive silver bullet. There are 3 questions around one table. Good feedback there. We'll start with yours in the back left.
Yes, thank you so much for this information. Thank you so much for the information, it's very helpful. I'm interested in, I've read recently that the numbers for neuro diseases have increased, even higher than cancer now as causes of illness or death. And it sounds like you just said that there's no way to tell why or how someone gets Parkinson's, right?
Well, some things they know. I mean, there are people that are studying, environmental things. And then, I think one of the things they were talking about is, I think this is what the subtypes are. There's certain genes, certain forms that are genetic and have different qualities, Parkinson's. And so we know that there's some environmental factors. And there's.
Yeah, that's what I heard as well. And then the second half was, you said nutrition. Is it just a vegetarian diet, a high-fat diet? Were they particular about?
So the common theme on diet was that animal products and dairy, which is also animal product, are in the sort of negative category. And while this can be a little shocking, because it's sort of like, well, I'm a vegetarian, but you've got a heavy dairy diet, that would put you maybe in the category you wouldn't want to be in, or maybe you eat only the finest meats. Well, they don't really know why, but meats or dairy are seen as bad, but they know that there's a correlation. and the correlation was very statistically significant. There were several speakers and lots of posters about nutrition, and just like they said, you get the neurosurgeon up there and they would say, I'm gonna talk about DBS, but by the way, exercise is medicine, you know, and Mediterranean diet is key. So, you know, it can be overwhelming because there are 100 things we can do. But on the other hand, there are 100 things that we can do. Like, it's not like a cancer that we can't stop from spreading. You know, we can change our diet immediately. And even though the World Parkinson Congress occurs only once every 3 years, it brings the whole sense of urgency to what we're doing. And you know, there was a group of people in, I believe it was Ireland, who would, every morning they would go swimming in the like frigid North Sea or whatever sea that is up there. And one of the leaders of that program was a woman nutritionist who was very inspiring and talked on a couple of panels at the Congress, and just people doing stuff, you know. And so if social interaction is key, so maybe you eat your yogurt, but you balance it off with talking with someone while you eat. And no one really knows why these things work. You know, maybe the truth is we really don't know. They would have said something if they knew why. Yeah.
Was there any talk of the combination of the new MIND diet and Mediterranean? The MIND diet is showing significant cognitive decline to reduction of that. And this is fairly new research, and it's a combination of the DASH diet, which has been around for many, many years for heart disease, and the Mediterranean diet.
Is that MIND, M-I-N-D?
The MIND. Mm-hmm.
Well, so there's, because I've heard a lot about that in the past 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I heard some of it at the Congress, or it's just from the recent ECSF conference and other conferences that I've watched or attended. But I heard someone say that well, you basically want to combine as much as you can and try to avoid the things that they say you should avoid. The DASH diet, I believe, was the strictest of the group, but it also allows for chicken, and chicken is sort of seen as a no-no really everywhere else that I've looked. And there are films about how chickens are farmed, and it kind of makes it clear that it really can't be good for you. So I've heard people. I heard one doctor say that the problem with DASH was that it had, you know, the poultry, but otherwise, I mean, very successful. I think there's a show out on Netflix right now called Blue Zones, and it's about people who live to be centenarians, you know, over 100, and they're dancing and they're riding horses. So, and they have, their diet is absolutely restricted to, you know, sort of the good things of all these things.
You know, one of the things about the statistics about stuff like nutrition is that the people that respond usually are the people that are more proactive, more healthy, probably exercising and more healthy to begin with. So it's really hard to tell, but I think it's kind of like exercise. You know, people are always asking, what's the best kind of exercise? And they always say, it's the one that you like to do. And I think that's a little bit true with diet too. I mean, we all know what feels best in our own body, and you know, I think it's obviously the stuff that's bad for everybody is bad for us too. You know, pesticides and you know all that.
There are a couple questions at the back table. Why don't we start in the front?
Me?
Yep.
Yeah, I have two quick questions. One of them, the No Silver Bullet videos have been featuring a lot of vibrotactile things, and you mentioned there was an area where they had the gloves and all. There was another one with a disc. Did you see much evidence or any that the vibrotactile stimulators are supposed to, are they working for people long term?
Well, the one that I'm remembering from the Congress that seemed to be most effective was, it was like like if you have carpal tunnel syndrome, kind of like a wrist or armband, and it had some sort of like vibratory, power going on, like a light vibration, and it seemed to really help with tremor while eating. I don't think you would wear it all the time, but you could wear it during meals.
But are you talking about that glove thing?
Well, the glove came first, and then recently on No Silver Bullet, there was something that looked like a little small hockey puck.
I saw the hockey puck, and it wasn't like that convincing, but it might help you 15 or 20%.
Yeah.
And if you add those all up, personally, my strategy is because there is no silver bullet, I'm gonna do a 10% improvement here and a 10% improvement here, and when you add it up, it's real money. And with the Stanford professor and the glove, there were people who were talking. A lot of people were very, very interested, and apparently it's still like in development, and there's like some commercial like partnership issues or something that is not known to the public. So this was at the UCSF event. They kind of briefly talked about it, and it seems like very interesting, but not, yeah.
I have one more really quick question for anyone new in the room. What you said about ping pong, I totally agree. That used to be a great sport when I was younger, and the eye-hand coordination, everything. I can't find a place
Okay, I
in
know.
East Bay to play ping pong. If somebody has a yard, I will buy you a table.
The North Berkeley Senior Center.
Yeah.
North Berkeley?
Senior
North Berkeley Senior Center.
Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I found out they're not so good anymore.
Believe me, I will expect that.
We've been talking about with Pediactive about getting a ping pong group together somehow.
That'd
So
be
I think,
great.
Kathy, do you have any updates on that?
We're still looking into it. I know Deborah is on our list of priorities.
Oh, great.
And I did want to mention, that Deborah is also on the programs committee at Pediactive, and so, I wanted to make sure that, that everyone knows that she's helping programs, and I know that ping pong is high on her list of priorities. So we're definitely looking for a place to do ping pong, for PD.
Great.
You know that guy though, that there's a lot of videos of that musician who plays, who got so much help from ping pong. Have you seen? Oh, well, anyway, he was at the conference. I'd seen a lot of videos of him. Ping pong made him able to play the piano again after.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes, in the back again, the pink hat.
Was there any mention of that research that's going on about the alpha-synuclein protein in the brain that clumps together and kills other brain cells?
Tons.
And borderline incomprehensible to a normal human.
I couldn't hear what you said. What?
But it was borderline incomprehensible to me and for most people, the talks on alpha-synuclein.
I can't hear you.
You said it was borderline incomprehensible.
It was technically advanced.
Yeah.
But that seems to be one of the main avenues that people are looking at. Another interesting thing that they talked about, and there's the UK group, the Parkinson's, it's the one, Cure Parkinson's Trust. And they presented on repurposing drugs. So repurposing drugs that are already approved for other uses. Some of you might know about amantadine, which is used to reduce dyskinesia now. Originally in the late 60s, it was a flu treatment. It got repurposed for, they found out people with flu who had Parkinson's did better.
And now Trexone is another one they're repurposing.
There are a few. There are a couple that were mentioned that I wrote down were Ambroxol, exenatide, and pomalidomide. And they were all being sort of, the thing about a repurposed drug is it's already been approved for another use, so they know that it generally is not gonna kill people it's safe. So,
Does it have to go through another cycle of FDA for?
I think it's like accelerated, so you don't have to repeat every single thing.
Interesting.
Gabe?
I can bring a couple things together for you in the alpha-synuclein. Can you hear me? The alpha-synuclein thing. So there's increasing confidence that alpha-synuclein is the primary cause. it starts in the gut, and the fatty proteins combine together, and they basically clog up the neuroreceptors in the brain. So there's more confidence every day. Most of the studies on drugs now, the ones at UCSF and other places, are focused on neutralizing alpha-synuclein. So that's one thing. The second thing, all the diet stuff around no animal protein is because of alpha-synuclein, and they think animal proteins cause the clumping somehow, but they don't know how. So they're pretty sure it starts in the gut, alpha-synuclein is the cause, and they think animal proteins play a role.
Thank you.
Dr. Gabe, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm a retired epidemiologist, and my colleagues would blanch at what I'm going to say. Okay. Maybe that's why I retired. You all heard the statement, if you've seen one Parkinson's patient, you've seen one Parkinson's patient.
Yes.
There's tremendous heterogeneity, tremendous variability in Parkinson's disease. The symptoms, the progression, all the non-motor stuff. And I think that it's important that people try everything, frankly. Don't limit yourself to where there's a controlled randomized clinical trial. Because those trials are about average effects. They're not about what works for you. So I think you have to try, don't go too woo-woo, but try things. Try this diet, try that diet, try this exercise, try this medicine, be flexible. Because you have to do research on yourself to see what works for you.
Just layer into that though, let's make sure we're keeping our doctors in the loop on anything we try. So none of us here, with the exception of our retired epidemiologists, are specialists. So if you hear something interesting here, we're just trying to recite that back for you guys from the perspective of the World's Parkinson's Congress. Go talk to your doctor about it and ask them, hey, I heard about XYZ and I'm interested in trying it. So.
One thing that I found helpful was the discussion of sort of developing your own treatment plan, and just like writing down what your plan is. And it could be like an Excel spreadsheet that's 2 pages long, or it could just be walk more. And there was a PT who said, if you want to work on your walking, work on your walking. And it was just like, oh, yeah, it's so, right? So I think setting up some goals, like there was a lot of talk about how do you beat apathy? Apathy was a topic that came up a lot. And just by having goals, so like I'm going to, whatever it is, and you try to do it, and that can be very powerful, particularly if you're, if you have rigidity, and that makes it a little harder to get up and get out of bed and do those hard things. But once you get moving, particularly with other people, that's why dancing in a group and why we're so glad to come back to in-person events and classes.
Questions in the
Like
back?
the in-person events that we have right now at Pediatric at the North Oakland Senior Center. Going out there.
Yes, in the back?
Yes, obviously is great. I really theology is so on the progression of like deteriorating. It just slowing down the progression of the disease. I've had it for 25 years. And I've tried different things to slow it down. But each problem of the disease, I still have worse.
Maybe if I could restate sort of the comment, just to make sure everyone hears it. So you were diagnosed 25 years ago?
Yes.
So with 25 years of experience, is there a cure on the horizon? What kind of hope can we offer? And I think that's, the truth is, that's like the most difficult thing about this, is we can't really say that there's anything coming. I go to Zoom seminars all the time, and it's encouraging usually, but there's definitely not a cure that feels like it's right around the corner. Maybe the researchers would beg to differ and say that they feel like there's more reason to be optimistic, but I think personally, you've got to rely on your own energy to do the things that we know help, because that's all we've really got.
And did either of you get any sense of any treatments out there that might slow progression? So there's the cure, and then I think part of the gentleman's question is, what's available out there that might at least slow down the decline? Treatment or cure?
The only thing that they were willing to concede that on was exercise. But so this whole idea of like using data and measuring things to see what the impact was, there was one speaker, a Dutch neurologist, his name is Bas Bloem. You may have seen him. He's a lot of sort of at the forefront of, it seems, in Western Europe, the research and leadership on, with Parkinson's. And he spent about 20 minutes explaining why it was part of a group that did a study of studies looking at the scale used to measure progression, impact on progression of the therapy. So all of these studies, there have been hundreds of studies that look at, does this thing slow progression in any sort of way? And it's 99% of the time it's been measured by the UPDRS scale, which you may not know what that acronym means, but you've all been to the neurologist's office where you've done this, and that's where they calculate your UPDRS score. And I've never left with a ticket that says this is what your score is. It's like, maybe it's in my medical file and I can see it, but so I don't really know what my score is. But what the study of studies found was that people, the same neurologist on 2 different days with the same patient could have a slightly different score. And same one patient, 2 neurologists, most likely there would be 2 different scores. So in something that's that fuzzy, to say that you have a 20% improvement, or the placebo was 15% and this was 16%, so they're both, there's really no purpose to this drug. It just kind of called into question, really years of data, because the neurologist isn't asking you, how do you feel, and that's affecting your score. I mean, maybe that's one of the elements, I don't know. Because again, it's like a black box, but these are subjective things, like, am I moving my hand quickly? Did I take my Cinemet 20 minutes right before I walked in the room, so everything's like perfect? Or has it been 4 hours and I can barely walk down the hall? So that was pretty, in a way, shocking to me, but we have to take those historical studies with a grain of salt and realize that it's not that clear, whether it's a 10% or 20% or 50% improvement. Mario.
One of the things that my wife and I do every morning, we start off with a Zumba class, which is for PD Active, and it's recorded. And Zumba and Latin American music. It's Parkinson's it's Zumba for people with Parkinson's. And it's really, really good. It covers a lot of different areas of exercise balance. So I highly recommend it.
And now, as Kathy said, we have a live Zumba class once a week. It's really fun.
Live, but this is also
Yeah,
recorded.
right.
So you don't have to wait for once a week to do it, something.
Right. You can do it whenever you want.
So Mario's referring to our YouTube channel, where we try to put up recordings from most of our classes during a given week, and some of these events that we are able to record like today and on Zoom. So when we send out a follow-up to all the folks that have registered for this event today, we'll include that link that Mario's talking about to our YouTube channel. But as Deborah says, it is going on live every week, Thursdays at 10:30 at North Oakland Senior Center now?
Yep.
At the North Oakland Senior Center, Thursdays at 10:30 with Adriana. I've taken it once, it's wonderful.
It's free.
And it's free, well, yeah.
Donation.
Free. True.
Donations encouraged, but.
Yes.
So, I was wondering, do they know any, like, what pollution, what you say could be environmentally caused? And do they know what factors, like what pollutants could be causing the Parkinson's disease?
Well, so this was sort of one of the more depressing topics, because there are so many toxins, and when you hear like somebody whose expertise is in toxins talk about toxins, it's like toxins squared. But the well water has been shown to be higher risk if you grow up in a place with well water. Pesticides in general have been shown, so people who live near or on farms. But there are the Ending Parkinson's group, and I think the book is called Ending Parkinson's, maybe?
Prescription for Action.
Prescription for Action by
Bas Bloom.
Ray Dorsey.
Ray Dorsey, and so
Two others.
a couple of other authors. But they walk through, whether it's Roundup, which is still widely used, TCE, still widely used.
What is it?
Trichloroethylene.
Trichloroethylene, TCE.
So there are all these known, horrible pesticides, and they're definitely increasing the risk.
Well, both my brother and my father had Parkinson's, my brother has it. They're both carpenters working with resins and wood and paint. Could that have anything to do with this?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not saying this is not my scientific opinion because I don't have one, but just from hearing the Ending PD group, they have tons. They speak all the time, and their book is really clear. And I think where it gets you is what can you do about it, and you can follow the political process and try to get things affected that way. And because the Ending PD group has been so vocal, I actually think there's some promise there. And then there's also just, eat organic if you can afford it, and, get yourself away from those toxic exposures.
So the Ending PD group was there in force.
Well, they were there in force, but they're everywhere. They're.
Those four docs. So Sebastian Bloom was there.
And Ray Dorsey, and I'm forgetting the other two names.
So if you haven't read that, Ending Parkinson's is a very good read. It's sort of required reading for this community. It talks a lot about causes that are environmental, but also hereditary. Also gives you a plan for action, including email and phone numbers for our government representatives that are still relatively fresh out there, actually, that we can reach out to try to have the FDA kill things like paraquat, which is still being actively used in our country and not in many other developing countries.
You have a good talk too on our YouTube channel by the woman at UCLA who came and talked about environmental.
Carly Tanner?
No, Beatrice.
Oh, Beatrice, yeah.
On our YouTube channel, we have all the past speaker forums are on there, and there was a woman who talked about this from UCLA last year.
Good point.
Beati Rich, a colleague of Mary's.
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
What is the name of the
Activism
book?
itself is a useful cure for apathy.
Ending Parkinson's, a prescription for action. Back row.
I was wondering, one of my problems is I have CMT as well as Parkinson's, and the Parkinson's has been exacerbated by CMT, which is in my legs, and so I can't walk or stand very well. And I was wondering if any of these classes, or if there's any suggestions about getting more aerobic exercise. I used to bike everywhere, and I no longer bike except on my exercycle and things like that. And walking is obviously very difficult.
The other condition is TM.
CMT, Charcot-Marie-Tooth syndrome. It's an atrophying of nerves that innervate certain muscles. In my case, lower legs and feet.
Okay.
I have two suggestions of pediatric, for, classes that could be supportive. One is, Tai Chi for gait and balance. Otto teaches that on Mondays, and I think that could be supportive and helpful because it'll help, the walking and the balance and the gait.
Anyone recommend like swimming pool? Good swimming pool with warm water, you know?
Can anyone recommend a good place to swim, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, the Albany
Y?
pool is good.
Albany Public,
Yeah.
The YMCA also.
YMCA, Mario,
Temescal Pool is 5 blocks from here,
Temescal Pool.
on 45th Street.
Got that, Mario? Temescal Pool?
Gabe?
I have a question about if you saw anything on intensity of exercise, because I know in general in athletic training and sports medicine, the higher intensity exercise you can do, the better the result. Basically, you go as hard as you can if you want to be athletic and, perform. I'm wondering, and I've seen some of that, HIIT is better, high intensity interval training is better for folks, but did you see any studies that suggested that or talk about that?
I heard people talk about that, and I think high intensity I think they actually have shown that it's better, but it comes back to what Deborah said at the beginning, that, the best exercise is the one that you'll actually do.
Yeah.
And that for the practitioners and for them to recommend something that will turn people off, is not a good idea, but having participated in classes where they kind of sneakily get you from class 1 where it's sort of slow moving to like class 4 where you're actually doing high intensity. We all can do some form of high intensity. It's percentage based, 80% I think of your like maximum threshold.
Yeah.
So, work with the PT to find out what that rate is, but we can all be stretched a little bit.
Well, we're inching toward the end of our window here. One more question in the back? We don't want to.
I just wanted to be wondering what type of exercise is best, stretching, aerobic, or?
So I think this one, I would just speak personally, because I try a lot of different things. I've danced with Mario at Zumba before, and done a whole bunch of other things. And I think variety is really the way to go, because we all have different issues, and whether it's walking fast or keeping up with people or speaking loud, you just need to work on all that. And the guy, there's a team I think in Ohio that pioneered the cycling research, and what they did was it was a 2-person bike, and so the person in the back was forced to keep up with the person in the front, even though maybe that was faster than they would normally go. And it turned out that a person with Parkinson's did it, and their handwriting at the end of the ride was much better. There was a sign-in sheet, and they compared the two, and it was so much better. So they launched all this research, and so I think stretching yourself, just like for us to speak in front of a group, that's stretching ourselves. I haven't had to talk this loud in a long time. So I think they're all forms of exercise that can be helpful.
Okay, well, let's do this. Let's come to the end of this. If there are any other questions, raise your hands, but why don't we, okay, Mario.
You see the videotapes of the World Parkinson Congress. It says masterclass videos here. So does that mean you go to Pediactive and it has this information where you just click on here?
Almost. I'm glad you bring this up. Thank you. I meant to mention it. I put a few of these. These are just, this is really just a copy and paste from a website that Joanne Ruby, who Deborah mentioned a few minutes ago, referenced for me. This is just a sort of a sample list of things that were talked about in what the WPC referred to as their master classes. And these tend to focus mostly on treatment, it sounds like, but I thought it'd be interesting for you guys to have these. I will send out, again, to all the registrants that signed up for this event today, this and some other links that have been referenced in our talk today, including this link, which is terribly obsequious to have to type into your browser. So we'll give it to you in a clickable form in an email. Does that sound fair? So the rest of this is meant as just sort of FYI, and maybe to prompt any discussions or questions around these master classes. Why don't we just ask you guys, in sort of a wrap-up sense, did you attend any of these master classes? Did any of them strike your fancy? And to sort of conclude and wrap up, what did you take away from the WPC that got you excited? I mean, you've referenced several things that were pretty exciting, but what would you pick as your favorite? Deborah first?
Well, you know, I said, the films spoke to me a lot, because they were,
Running with the Devil?
Shaking Hands with the Devil was great, yeah, and I have a link for that if anybody wants it.
Okay, good.
I think for me, it was a reminder that there's just so much going on in our communities, and that everyone has an opportunity to, like, you know, help someone else in the community, and then in a way help themselves, because it's social interaction and empowering. And we saw that in a huge way at the WPC, but we've seen it in smaller ways at some of our local conferences, in things like this. So I would just encourage everyone to stay involved, and, you know, we're lucky that you know, it's not 25 years ago when there was very few tools in the toolbox for dealing with Parkinson's.
We're also lucky to have PD Active.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Toby. It's been great. We appreciate you taking the time out of your weekend to join us. So thanks, Deborah. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
As a reminder, if you haven't had anything to eat yet, please feel free to swing by the back table. And if you haven't signed in yet with Kathy in the back table, whether you're with Merrill Gardens or PD Active, please do that on your way out.